Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another Choosing Beggar Reddit video. In our first story, why aren't you committed to our company 24/7? Let's jump right in. For context, I work part-time as a customer service representative at a clothing company, while trying to make my living and my career in the art sector. I have to give a bit of background to the picture down below. Before the pandemic, the company was doing just fine. No major impacts, all in all operating in the black, meaning no losses were made. The pandemic hit everyone hard. We had multiple people in the company being made redundant, and they restructured the company. In times we were down to only working 80% of our original contracted hours. Note, every customer service representative is being paid hourly. Shortly after the pandemic started, all customer service representatives' key performance indicators changed. These usually included stuff like the minutes you spend on a case to deal with, phone, email, chat, fax. Yes, people still fax us. Shake my head. Total transactions throughout the day, per hour, etc. On top of that, our so-called upsells key performance indicators changed as well. Every order call we get, yes, people can still order stuff with us over the phone, we have to offer products that are cheaper or on offer to make the customer spend more than they usually would have. The percentage was 12.5% before the pandemic, meaning from 100 order calls, we must have a successful rate of 13 calls which said yes to our upsells to generate more money for the company. There's nothing wrong with that, it's business. But shortly after the pandemic started, the percentage changed to now 20%. We really have to work our butts off for that. Like I said, all customer service representatives work on an hourly rate. Overtime is being paid with an extra 50% on top. Honestly, our customers are the most entitled pieces of crap I've ever met. But these are stories for other subreddits. Every customer service rep is doing this job because they are still studying or because it is easy money to pay the bills. It is not a job you want to spend your entire life on. On top of that, our founder has made over $30 million with this company. Money that is his alone. The company was never making losses during the pandemic, but more budget cuts were made in every department. The founder could easily pump in some of his own money to make the company run better, but he won't for some reason. The board and everyone else lately got a raise, but no customer service rep got a raise. All customer service reps work minimum wage, and the prices for our goods were all raised by over 30%. And just this morning, we got this email. On the back of this great news, I did run some figures and we had just over 100 hours of overtime from the customer service rep population over the course of the last 2 months, and over 80% of these overtime hours came from only 4 customer service reps. Quite frankly, I find this low number of hours quite shocking, considering the position we find ourselves in as a business and working through these challenging times. I would take this moment to ask you all to really think hard about where you can provide supplementary hours to your core shifts and support our customers and our company. We are all feeling the pressure and working tremendously hard, granted, but I find it quite hard to believe that over the course of 2 months, the majority of us couldn't offer even a handful of additional hours to support the business and our customers. It is quite disappointing to see such a poor commitment. I would again ask you all to have a real think about where you can offer support and book those hours in. It is very much needed and would be very much appreciated. Thanks in advance. Story number 2. I will only pay your salary if you do what I want. Hey, this is kind of a follow-up of my last post, but don't worry, I'll give the proper context. So I used to work at an English school here in Brazil. And yes, I know my English isn't the best, but I only taught beginners, so it was good enough. Well, that school was a nightmare. They didn't care about the teachers' well-being. The only thing that they wanted was the students' money. Because of the way they treated us, I decided to leave. I told them that I would stay 2 more weeks so they could hire a new teacher to replace me. It was all going great, and I quickly found a new job when there was still one more week there. I decided on working at both places since it was temporary. I did fine until they found more than 500 pages of homework that my student's last teacher didn't correct. For some context, they have a kind of policy that you have to continue the work another teacher has left behind. I took a deep breath and took the papers home. I corrected some of them, but got really tired. I decided to call the school to say that I wouldn't be able to do it, and they told me it was my responsibility and that they would tell the students I didn't want to do it, and more threats like that. I had a panic attack. It was my first job, and I was scared they would talk trash about me to the whole town. So I started rushing through the papers. I wasn't even reading them correctly, just so it looked finished. I know, it was a big mistake on my part, but I really didn't know what to do. I gave it all back to them and left. I still had to come back there to get paid for the classes I gave that month, and that was when the problem started. They saw a bunch of mistakes on those papers, and one of my bosses called to say they wouldn't pay me that month because of that. I started to panic even harder. Their excuse was that they had to hire another teacher to correct the mistakes. Initially, I just accepted it, but then I thought about it and it hit me. I was paid for each class. I wasn't paid for the time I spent correcting the homework. And there was their policy: the new teacher should continue the work of the old one. They didn't hire a teacher to do that, they just passed the work on to the new one. They didn't pay a cent for that work, and yes, I contacted the new teacher about it. It made me so mad. I went there and told them that I wouldn't leave without being paid for my work. Well, they did pay me, but only 70% of what they owed me. I was so dumb and scared that I just accepted it. I truly shouldn't have, but unfortunately I did. They were really dishonest and disrespectful. It was a terrible experience. All that for getting 15 reais, about $3 an hour. Story number 3, I'm allergic to your food. A few years ago, I was working as a travel nurse in a small unit at a Miami hospital. It was a great group of people, mostly. People brought local food in and were very social, so I started baking and bringing southern items to share. After I brought in some pecan pound cake one day, another traveler thought she would be kind and brought in some walnut brownies. That's when Karen erupted. You always bring in this food for everyone, but it's got nuts, and I'm allergic to nuts. You aren't bringing in food for me. Mind you, Karen never brought in food for everyone. She was always there to eat it and talk about how she made a better version, but not once did she ever bring food in. And she never said anything like, "Those look great, but I'm allergic to nuts. Hint, hint," like a functioning adult would. We would have gotten the hint and tried to accommodate her allergies. After she finished her rant and stormed out, the other 3 of us that were in the break room, me, the other traveler, and my work wife, looked at each other, then said at the same time, "Oh, it's on." For the next few weeks, we brought in food every day, without fail, and every bit of it had nuts on or in it. I made chunky chocolate pecan bars. Someone else brought in homemade banana nut bread. Another got cinnamon rolls with sprinkled nuts from one of the best bakeries in the city. Even the docs got in on it by ordering cupcakes one day with nuts on all of them. I brought in Nutella. We even made hazelnut coffee to go with my mom's pecan pie. We dined like royalty that month, while Karen could only sniff and simmer. It was glorious. This is John from Slash Bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to be the first to know when the next one drops, then subscribe and click on that notifications bell. I'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends. See you in the next one.